Welcome everybody to a look at a new 4K release from Vinegar Syndrome, and it is 1961's Reptilicus. So this is directed both by Paul Bang and Sidney W. Pink, depending on which version you watch, as there are two versions. It's a monster film, and depending on which version you watch, you've got the 82-minute long English version, or you got the 95-minute long Danish version. So this had a budget of $233,000 and made at the box office $800,000. So a reasonable success. Unfortunately, like with the directors, I've not seen any of the cast in anything before. So, a group of mining engineers prospecting for copper in the mountains of Lapland make an incredible discovery when the drilling unearths the remains of a giant prehistoric amphibious reptile. A section of the creature's tail is exhumed from beneath the frozen tundra and transported to the National Aquarium in Copenhagen, where it's placed in a cold room to be studied. But when the door to the room is accidentally left ajar, the tail segment begins to thaw, quickly regenerating itself into a gigantic beast. Now loose and embarking on a cross-country rampage, the military are forced to employ all means necessary to destroy the creature before it launches a full-scale attack on the capital. So, yeah, although I don't hate this giant monster movie as much as some people do, especially upon my first watch of this film, and even more so given its poor reputation that it's garnered over the decades. This is definitely, ultimately, overall, one of the weakest of its type. This is thanks to it trying to do a lot with a really rather quite minimal budget, which makes any of the attempts at spectacle either underwhelming or laughable. The script and acting are also predominantly woeful, although that could be because they're mostly Danish people trying to speak in English. There's only a couple of actors that are swapped out between the Danish version and the English language version, so that could be a possibility when it comes to the acting. Unfortunately, I've not yet seen the Danish version, so that could hopefully be solved. But that also would not solve the rather predictable plot as well and the underwhelming script. So, yeah. But that said, I did find it entertaining in spite of and because of its flaws. It certainly is a film you can laugh along at. It is also well paced, and at least some of the practical effects work. While due to it being set in Denmark, that does at least lend it a modicum of originality rather than being set in the US, where a lot of these monster films were set outside of Japan. So, yeah, we don't often get monster movies set in Europe. We've had a couple in the UK. We've had Gorgo, which is a film that was released by Vinegar Syndrome as well, and we've also had Conga. But yeah, they're the only other two I can think of that have been set in Europe. So, but if there are other ones, then I'd like to hear about them. But regardless, yeah, not a particularly great film. I'm going to give it a slightly higher rating than I gave it when I originally saw this on DVD. I got it as part of I think, an 8 or 9 film DVD box set. So I'm going to give it 2.5 stars out of 5, but it is by no means a good film. Don't get me wrong, it's not a good film at all. So it's only for those that are into the so bad it's good kind of films, or you're just a collector of monster films like I am, and therefore you want to get as many of these as possible. Go, for instance, is definitely the better of the two films, but still, the 4K looks pretty good. They've done the best with the elements that they had going on. And yeah, I really like the box artwork that it's got going on, although that bridge does not appear anywhere in the film. And we've got artwork for the outside as well, which kind of recreates the whole drill going into the tail at the beginning. And then another section of the tail at the back there. And then we've got the new artwork on the sleeve of the case. And then we have the original artwork on the reverse of that as well. I usually swap the covers round because obviously we've got the new artwork on the hard box, so it only makes sense to have the original artwork on the sleeve as well. So there we go. And yeah, we've got the film across 3 discs as well. So the first Blu-ray disc, for instance, contains everything on the Ultra HD disc plus the following special features. So it's got this disc here has a 50 million years out of time, revisiting Reptilicus, 32 minutes, a new retrospective featuring film historian producer Robert Parigi and screenwriter film historian C. Courtney Joyner. Then you got Pink Goes West, Life After Reptilicus, clocking in at 11 minutes long, an interview with filmmaking historian Jay Jennings, and then we've got Invincible Indestructible, 29 minutes, illustrator, author, and film historian Stephen A. Bissetti on Reptilicus and its enduring legacy. And then on the second Blu-ray, you can see, we have the alternate 95-minute Danish language version of Reptilicus with newly translated English subtitles. And then on the 4K, we've got the 82-minute feature presentation of Reptilicus presented in HDR and newly restored from its 35mm original camera negative with the following sound options. You've got the original English language mono soundtrack and a brand new commentary track with film historian Nicholas Barbono and novelist and critic Kim Newman. And yeah, like I said, you've got all the stuff on the two Blu-rays as well. I only watched the 4K 82-minute version. Like I said, the film elements have been probably not looked after all that well over the decades, but they've done the best with it. But there is obviously some stock footage in there that they can't really do much with, so that is quite badly done, especially when it comes to using stock footage from World War II by the looks of things, to show that ships have been sunk and stuff by Reptilicus. So yeah, that is a little bit underwhelming, but still, we also get something physical with this in the same manner that we had with Gorgo, and it is basically a get it a diagram of the creature himself. So on the diagram itself, we've got a look at its brain. So it's surprisingly large and complex, apparently. It's also got the ability to grow and regenerate at astonishing speeds using quantum tunneling to quickly recycle damaged tissue. It's also got a bioluminescent venom used as primary means of attack and defense, highly toxic and corrosive. The way they're trying to depict that in the film is absolutely laughable. It's basically just a green slime that goes over the screen. You don't see any slime on anyone's actually arms or their face or anything like that. You don't see any of the corrosive effects on their skin. It's just a filter over the screen that goes across every now and then, which it's quite hilariously bad. It reminded me of the scene in Earthquake where the elevator lift falls down in the earthquake, and all that goes up on the screen is some red blood. You don't see any blood in the actual elevator; it's just a splurt of red blood in your face. And yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Yeah, you also got armored scales, which can resist most heavy artillery fire. The armor is comprised of hundreds of tiny scales that can change color to blend in with the environment. It must consume calories on a massive scale in order to maintain regenerative abilities. It's got wings that are capable of powered flight, lends credence to ancestral dragon monomyth and theory. And then you got the body, which creates huge quantities of natural antifreeze, urea, and glucose to prevent cells from exploding in freezing temperatures. So, yeah, I always really like these little diagrams that they give out, and the Gorgo one's really good. And yeah, this is also pretty good as well, and that'll hopefully go up at some point. But yeah, overall, the film is not particularly great. I do find it laughable that when I researched the film itself, the American director, Sidney W. Pink, actually commented that he said that the Danish miniatures and effects were superior to the Japanese ones that had obviously blown the world away with the original Godzilla and then Godzilla Raids Again, which is kind of, laughable, to be honest, because they are nowhere near as good as that. A lot of the times the creature really isn't moving, and if it is moving, it looks like it's stationary. Everything else is stationary about it, but it's just moving along the ground. And yeah, add on to that, the venom doesn't look particularly great, and a lot of the time the film element is slowed down for when the creature is on the screen. Not sure why, but it doesn't look great, and yeah, the picture quality isn't great on that either. So yeah, not a perfect film by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but as a big fan of monster films from the 50s and 60s, even the ones that are bad, I am glad that this has been given a release. And yeah, it's highly enjoyable to watch, for all the right and wrong reasons, basically. So yeah, if you are into these kind of bad monster films, then yeah, I would recommend it. But if you're someone that values quality, values a film taking itself seriously, or at least it wants you to take it seriously, and you don't want to be laughing at it, then I wouldn't recommend it. It's certainly nowhere near as good as, say, Godzilla or Them or the Ray Harryhausen films of the 50s, but still, it's fairly decent, and yeah, it's entertaining enough. And like I said, at 82 minutes, it does pass by in terms of the pacing. So yeah, could do a lot worse, but obviously can do a lot better. Nonetheless, so if you have seen this film before, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.